and welcome to the Around the Table podcast with Pastors Matt Smith and Nick Decker.
This podcast is all about the ministry and preaching of Lebanon Baptist Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. The goal is to help you grow in your faith and spiritual walk with the Lord every single day of your life.
To learn more about Lebanon Baptist Church, visit lbcnow.org. And now your hosts, Matt Smith and Nick Decker.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Around the Table. I'm Nick Decker, your host. I'm here with Matt Smith, our lead pastor, and we're glad that you've decided to join us for Around the Table today. As you can tell, Pastor Matt, I got us a round table.
You know what? I didn't even notice that. I'm so glad you did.
Yes, I decided this time to do away with the square table and do the round. So if you're on YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening, check out YouTube and check out what we did with the table.
Did you paint this yourself?
I did not. I probably need to.
Who painted this?
You know, I don't know. I don't want to know I don't want to tell everybody where I got it either, so okay. I'll just leave it there. Hey, so we're going to jump on in. Last week we had Kyle Oakley on the podcast, and he discussed Upward and shared with us that, you know, we do it for our community to see them come to know Jesus Christ. That's the main reason. We want people saved, and so we don't do it, you know, to win basketball games, even though that's fun. We do it to see people saved, and I've really enjoyed hearing from Kyle and just his heart and passion. In fact, he has 21 coaches that are from the church. So we need 22. We need 4 more coaches. So 4 more. So if you're watching this and you say, hey, maybe I need to, or listen to this, maybe I need to coach, let us know. We need 4 more Christian coaches. So you jumped into a sermon series. We're going to jump right in. You jumped into a sermon series this past Sunday, and then I'm preaching this Sunday, looking at missing Christmas, kind of a unique approach, because most of the time we don't consider the opposite side. Most of the time we're focused on Jesus when it comes to sermon series and the Bible and Christmas time, focused as in my air quotes here for those listening, but I like to spin on it because you focused on those who missed it, and you talked about, you began to discuss, hey, there's 3 things that often cause us to miss what most matters at Christmas time. So, for example, distractions, which you focused on. I'm talking about selfishness this upcoming Sunday, and then you're going to look at disappointments. Explain to me what you meant by the word "in" there and the innkeeper in Luke chapter 2, because I want you to know I was a little disappointed. And I'll tell you why in a second. Yeah,
you were probably disappointed a little bit, and that's why we gave you the second topic, selfishness, because you need to study that out a little bit. There's a lot of interesting interpretive debate behind the scenes there in Luke 2 with what is the meaning of the word "in."
What verse is that again, by the way?
Verse 7. Luke 2. Yeah, Luke 2:7. She gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. And the word there is kataluma. When we read that in English, we just think, oh, there was no room for them in the hotel. But the word is actually, while it can mean that, it's only used, that particular word is only used one other time in Luke. And
where is that used at?
It's used in Luke 22. And so in Luke chapter 22, I believe it is, we find that again where Jesus is preparing, Luke 22:11, Jesus is preparing for the Last Supper, the Passover meal. We call it the Last Supper, but the Passover meal. And he tells his disciples to go and ask for the master of the house to give them the kataluma, the guest room or the upper room. And that refers to the same word used in Luke 2, verse 7, same word, and there it's translated as upper room. And we know that is in keeping with the story or with the backdrop of homes in that day and how they were divided into 2 levels, and they would bring the animals in, and the people would sleep in the upper room or the guest room, and then the animals would stay in the lower area. So I think that this is referring in Luke 2:7 to no room for them in the guest room or upper room. So the indication is that they stayed in the lower room where the animals did, but they were with the family. And so it's just a different interpretation there. And probably someone texting me right now to tell us that
they're mad at us.
Tell us that we're not right about that. But
so the thought there, and I thought this is interesting, is basically like a 2-story house. Is that kind of the two-story? Upper level is where the people stay. Lower level is the animals. So Jesus was born literally where the animals stay.
Yes,
it wasn't a stable.
Right, but still born with the animals.
Born with the animals.
Yeah,
so that is true.
Yes, I believe that is true, yeah.
Here's why I'm disappointed, because when I was a kid, I was the innkeeper.
Yeah.
I was the villain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed.
No room for him here.
I literally said that, and then I was like a heretic almost, I guess, teaching the wrong thing. You made a good point, I think. You said Jesus, this proves that Jesus was fully human from God's perspective. He was not born in a palace. So from the divine perspective, I thought that was a good point that you said we want to prove that Jesus is fully human here. He's fully God, fully man. And so God wanted to show us, hey, he's not going to be born in a palace. And then on the human side of things, though, there was a lot going on here that was distracting them from Jesus. I mean, you had a census taking place. You had Mary and Joseph, and they were to be married. They weren't married yet. And so the culture, as you said, would, shun Mary and basically push Joseph. And so Joseph is feeling that pressure. So there were distractions taking place. And that's kind of how you geared the message, talking about the distractions. And you made several points that we're going to cover real quickly. But the first point I thought was good. You said this: many good things often overshadow the main things, causing us to miss out on what matters most. Many good things overshadow the best things, the what I say, and I wrote it down here, the God things. What are some things maybe that, obviously you got 30 minutes to share on Sunday morning, but our congregation, our people watching or listening to this don't always get to hear it. What are maybe some good things distracting you personally from God things, from the main thing, Jesus' birth when it comes to Christmas in your own life?
Yeah, I think so. I would say I know generally some others would say the same thing. It's this time of year has turned into a very busy time of year, not just in this year, every year, but it's very busy. And people often don't think about the church and what it's like to be around a church, working and serving and leading in a church around Christmas. Some don't think about that, but it gets busier around this time of year. We're gearing up for Upward. We've got that going on. We've got dinner theaters. We had kids' Christmas programs that were, we had to cancel and reschedule, and then now we've got changing executive orders. I think even stuff that just came out today, and with this COVID season too. For me personally, it's just a very busy time. I have a very big tendency of just kind of, getting to January and like you can take a breath now for some reason. And so I think the busyness is challenging for us. I got a couple weddings going on coming up in the next few weeks I've got to do too, and so that adds to it as well. So busyness is something that's very distracting. And just the pressure to perform a great Christmas experience, for your kids. I think as a parent, we kind of feel some of that pressure, and that's often distracting from the main thing. That's a good thing. We want our kids to enjoy it. We want them to have a good experience. We want them to get things that bring joy to them, which brings joy to us. But there's that distraction that comes from all of that. And so we kind of get into this rhythm, I think, in our culture where we begin these traditions, even around the house. And again, not bad, good, but we begin these little traditions. And then it's like the next year you got to, let's do one more thing. And so then you add. And then after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you've got all these things and you're trying to make it all happen every year. And it just becomes very distracting personally, in family life, and then also in ministry life. It can be distracting because of the busyness. Yeah,
trying to make it till the in-laws is pretty difficult.
Yes.
And then making them all happy, too.
I think going and spending time with your side of the family is...
Sure, my mom's watching right now, sending us a text. Hey, you went on to say, though, I thought that was a good point, because we do become so distracted with good things. I mean, you mentioned the political scene. You talked about how even in this season we can become so distracted with the politics, with what's going on, that we miss what Jesus is doing. I mean, you even talked about that, I think, in your second point. But then you mentioned Elf on the Shelf, and I thought maybe it'd be a good time for us, maybe even Wednesday, just have all the parents bring the elves on the shelves. Just bring the elves, though, and let's just have a burning. You know how
have an elf burning.
Elf burning.
Elf burning.
I actually just had I hope this guest might be watching, but I actually had a guest text us that visited, and she said, "Oh, I appreciate that message was so good." She said, "My son could not quit talking about the elf on the way home," and so he got that out of it for sure.
You know what? You should have had a little elf sitting back here on the backdrop of this on the bookshelf. For those of you listening, we have a shelf behind us. Those of you watching, you'll see it, but a little couple elves on the shelf. That would have been a good.
Maybe
nice
next
touch.
week we'll have an elf on the shelf or something else I mentioned.
Hey, I don't think that elf on the shelf is evil.
Yeah, it's not. It's not evil. It's a good thing.
It's just a. Well, let's not let it replace the main thing. Yeah.
Correct. Good thing. But like you said, I thought, that was a powerful statement. Even and I didn't even tell you I was going to say this. But
thank you for saying that.
Yes, some statements you make are powerful. Not many, but that one was. You said, "Hey, if you spend all this time focusing and trying to hide the elf on the shelf and think of creative ideas, but you don't spend the same amount of time or more teaching your kids the story in Luke 2 or teaching them what it means about Christmas, you've missed it." So that bringing that around, and not just elf on the shelf, anything, gifts, anything. Hey, number 2, you said, and we got to move quickly here, you said, you will miss what God is doing right around you if you allow yourself to be distracted by secondary issues. And so you made the point that, hey, God is doing things right now. You talked about how in the midst of COVID, God is purging the church. I just read a statistic that if your church, and I think you're the one who shared this with me, if your church is seeing 30% of people come back right now, that's a good thing. Like you're like that's normal, 30%. And most churches are saying that when COVID ends, whenever that is, or whatever the new normal, they're expecting 25% less, just out the gate. So I think God is purging the church. He's strengthening Christians, as you said. He's using this time, but if we're not careful, right, like you said, we can become so distracted by the things around us that we miss what God is doing right now. He's doing some great things. Even at our own church, he's doing some great things that, we could spend, 45 more minutes literally talking about what just happened last month.
Yeah, let me say this. Even with the things that we're seeing, but too, I'll just share this. We just recently, a couple weeks ago, we introduced into covenant membership at our church. 10 new families, 39 people counting their kids and everything. And I've shared that with some others recently, other pastors and stuff, and it's just kind of like, wow, amazing that's happening. That's some of the local here on a local level at our church. That's an incredible blessing that we're experiencing, and we'll miss even some of that if we get distracted by some secondary things. Yeah, I think you're right. That's just a huge thing that happened to us. So, hey, as we close today, I was thinking of my own life. I just thought I'd share this. I told you I would. My wife and I sat in the 11 a.m. service, and so we got a chance to sit there, and you said at the end, you said, hey, why don't you list 2 or 3 things that are distracting you right now in your thoughts, keeping your focus, on the distractions as opposed to the main thing, and both of our minds, and I'm not going to, belabor the point, but both of our minds went to our son that we lost at 21 weeks back in August. And Hannah said that to me right after we got in the car. I said, what do you think about the message? And she said, I've become so distracted by that. And obviously, I'm not a mother by no means, but it's hard. I get that. And even as a father now thinking through that, and we were thinking our own life, what can we do to obviously not forget his memory, not forget the hardships in our life, not forget what's going on around us, but what we can do to focus on the main thing. And both of us said, and I'll let you answer that as we close, but for us, we said, what we're going to do, hopefully, Lord willing, we're asking the Lord to help us here, but we're just going to take, our pain, take what we're going through and focus on somebody else. And so we're already deciding right now, how can we invest financially in somebody else, and how can we invest our time this Christmas in somebody else? And whether that's kids, grandkids, whatever, we're going to try to find some time this year to take it and use this in our life to say, Lord, we're going to focus on something else, okay? And we're going to try to put you first here in our life. So for us, that's how we're doing it.
So maybe let me turn this around on you. And as we close, how are you helping your family and helping yourself? I mean, I think it's both and here. Not become so distracted by good things and helping them focus on the main things. What are you doing personally?
So I think personally it's important that we practice some time of silence and solitude every day. I mean, that's a hard thing for most of us to do because we're so busy. But taking time to stop every day, doesn't even have to be long, but just taking a couple minutes, 5 to 15 minutes, a day to just pause, to read through the story. For us, we're reading through a Jesse tree kind of Advent reading program with our kids. And so every night there's a little reading on Scripture, and there's an ornament that is symbolic that they place on the tree that's symbolic of the story that we're reading, and it builds to the coming of Christ. And so it's so easy to be distracted, and I just think we need to be stopping, and we're stopping to make sure we take a little bit of time every day to focus on what the season is really all about. There's more, I think, that we can build upon that foundation, but with our kids, we're trying to pull them back to what is this season all about.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think you mentioned 2 resources. In fact, what are those 2 resources you mentioned?
Yeah.
It was the Advent Guide, which we'll post the link to, and then what was the second one?
Yeah, the second one was a website. It's just called faithword.org, faithword.org. And they have Jesse Tree Advent reading guide and tips on how to do all of that and put the ornaments together and lead your kids through that devotional thought. Again, it's not anything. There's not a magic wand here, not a silver bullet. It's not anything spectacular, but it is on the simple daily rhythm and routine of Scripture, prayer, focus, and reconnect.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And we'll post the links to both those resources. Just take a few minutes a day. Let me challenge you as we end. Take a few minutes today and spend some time focusing on the main thing for Christmas this year. Hey, Pastor Matt, thanks for joining us, and we're glad we got a chance to do this. Next week, we are going to be doing a segment called Ask Us Anything. So that means they can ask us anything. We'll post a link for you to kind of ask your questions, whether it's Christmas or not, whatever. We want to answer any questions you may have. We'll take about 10 minutes in the podcast and answer those questions. But you got to submit them beforehand or we won't answer them. So make sure you submit them. We'll send the links out through the next few days so that you can go ahead and submit your questions. Again, our podcast is sponsored by Lebanon Baptist Church here in Greensboro, North Carolina. We're so thankful for the chance to do this. If you missed Pastor Matt's sermon from this past Sunday, we'll post the link there as well. You can go to lbcnow.org and listen to that sermon so that you can be all caught up. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope that you guys have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for Around the Table, a discussion all about the ministry and preaching of Lebanon Baptist Church.
If you would like to learn more about Lebanon Baptist Church, visit lbcnow.org. Make sure to follow Lebanon Baptist Church on Facebook and Instagram, as well as subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening.